It's no secret that Albus Dumbledore and Gellert Grindelwald were extremely close friends, and perhaps more during their youth. The two boys met in Godric's Hollow and planned their own assault of succession upon the wizarding world. Many, if not all of us, are aware that their friendship came to a shuddering halt with the death of Ariana Dumbledore from the result of a three-way duel that broke out between Aberforth, Gellert and Albus. This led to Grindelwald embarking on his own quest for dominance without his friend, while Dumbledore heavily grieved his sister. Now we all know how that story panned out. We know what happened. But what if things were different? What if Dumbledore actually joined with Grindelwald regardless of the situation and actually stuck to the plan they had? How different would the wizarding world have been with these two powerful wizards on the same side? How would it have affected the Fantastic Beasts storyline? So here's the thing with Dumbledore. Yes, he's been like a father to Harry Potter, and did everything within his power to stop Voldemort, even destroying the Gaunt Signet Ring Horcrux. However, he really does have a dark past, and I'm aware that many of you know that, so I'm not exactly trying to feed you information that won't surprise you, but it's very important to understand the man's past, as this helps create a better visual when it comes to placing Dumbledore in what can only be argued as the villain's position. Yes, Dumbledore would be considered a villain and a dark wizard had he joined with Grindelwald, and were it not for the tragic death of his sister, the fate of the wizarding world could have been very different. In terms of the bigger picture, Dumbledore did completely become a credible, responsible and caring wizard. He was quite self-centered in his younger years, however. He craved power. He always had, and honestly even in his latter years, he still craved power. He disregarded his family and was actually resentful of the situation not allowing him to leave to travel the world prior to meeting Gellert Grindelwald a year earlier. Although Gellert was the more persuasive of the two, Albus was in a way somewhat of a perfect candidate. He wanted adventure, and Grindelwald was the man to give him that. So let's look at what the two had planned to do. Keep in mind, both were still quite young. Now, they both shared the belief that wizards should not have to be hidden away from the Muggle world, although I would like to add that this view may have been brought to light by Gellert himself. Albus, blinded by the thrill and excitement of a different life with his new friend, may have unknowingly agreed with him at the time, but he ended up thoroughly committing to this cause, and was prepared to do anything in order to achieve it. The two young men planned a takeover. What they had in common was their brilliance with magic. They wanted to end the international statute of wizarding secrecy and enslave the Muggle race. Yes, Albus Dumbledore planned to enslave Muggles. In order to achieve their goal, both men became deeply motivated to find the Deathly Hallows. It is said that to unite the Hallows would make one the master of death. Individually, the magical objects were critical to what they believed they needed to do. The Elder Wand is the most powerful wand in the world. In the hands of an already powerful wizard, it can be undefeatable. Now the wand's history will argue this point, but circumstances surrounding the wand's change of allegiance have always been very unclear. With the Elder Wand, the two wizards believed they'd be unbeatable. They also sought the Resurrection Stone, although for a reason that would not have been possible. Gellert Grindelwald believed that, with the stone in his possession, he could raise an army of Inferi, tens of thousands of animated corpses that would be at his beck and call. However, as I've said, this would have been impossible as the stone does not have that sort of power. However, over the years, there's been so much myth and speculation added to the story of the Hallows that it's only natural for some to assume they have powers beyond their limits. The Invisibility Cloak, the most powerful cloak ever created, would have been used to go undetected into important parts of the Ministry perhaps, or even officials' homes. I think it's very important to highlight just how close the two men came to launching an assault on the world together, and if they had, well, as I said earlier, things would have turned out a lot more different. In The Crimes of Grindelwald, Dumbledore is asked to fight and stop his former friend, because he was the only one who could. The Minister of Magic felt that there was no other who could rival Grindelwald. So can you imagine the two of them on the same side? Grindelwald could single-handedly defeat half a dozen wizards at once, and even more, and it's safe to say that Dumbledore would be able to do the same. They would gain so many followers across the world, even when on opposite sides, they were both widely known for their sheer power as wizards. If I can compare it to anything, it would kind of be like having two Voldemorts in terms of power. One is tough and one is difficult enough, but to stop two? They would also divide their duties but stand together in times of a testing atmosphere. Dumbledore would have killed people, just as Gellert did. Certain situations would demand it, although I'd still feel he'd be very remorseful. He'd go through with it, however, for the greater good. Not to mention he was completely in love with his friend. He would have never gone on to teach at Hogwarts, instead on a warpath across Europe, gaining followers while planning the latter stages of their coup. This means he and Newt Scamander would have never met, and that belief he bestowed in the boy would have never been known. This isn't to say that Newt would not have gone on to become a magizoologist, but knowing that someone still believed in him after his expulsion, when nobody else did, was very comforting for him. Would Newt have been as successful with his swooping evil disarming Grindelwald, with Dumbledore there to strike it down with one wave of his wand, or vice versa? It is the quality of one's conviction that determines success, not the number of followers, is Remus Lupin's words. Try to have the numbers, combined with an unmatched conviction from two extremely powerful wizards, then you have a really difficult fight on your hands. And speaking of those followers, these are not going to be crooked evil wizards from the darkest, deepest parts of Europe, nor will there be any trolls, giants, werewolves or any creatures swindled into joining their cause. Now that's not to say they wouldn't be, but I personally don't believe that would be the case with these two men. I genuinely believe that Dumbledore and Grindelwald would have gathered followers of a respectable status. They would try not to come across as villains, but more like freedom fighters, which could make people offer their support easily, and most important, willingly. This isn't going to be a case of kill the neutrals. I think that Grindelwald and Dumbledore would have succeeded in bringing about change in the wizarding world, restructuring the British Ministry of Magic for a start. I believe that after further thought about the consequences of revealing themselves to the Muggle world, which could result in a catastrophic war between two races, that they would demand a much larger territory instead, perhaps even a country where all wizard kind could live without interruption while being able to be open and free with magic. Both Gellert and Albus would govern this possible country with the government underneath their watch. And with that being said, that is all for today everyone. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the very next video.